Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today I am reacting to The Athletic's Mark Kaboly. He is the insider for The Athletic on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he put out a list of off-season winners and losers, put 5 winners, 5 losers from Steelers OTAs and mandatory minicamp this year, and today I'll be reacting to who he thinks is a winner and who's a loser for the Pittsburgh Steelers so far this offseason. Now, before we get into it here, The Athletic makes you pay $8 a month to read Mark Kaboly's article where he breaks all this down. Here on Steelers Talk, we're such nice guys. We're giving this to you 100% free, all right? So if you want free premium content, instead of having to pay $8 a month to The Athletic to get this kind of content, just click that subscribe button and join our family for free here and get the same level of premium content that you would get from The Athletic. Then we get to Kaboly's winners here, and his first person on the list is none other than tight end Pat Freiermuth, who has been really, really good during the offseason program to this point, guys. He's been freaking phenomenal. I'll give you guys my thoughts on how Pat's been playing here in just a second, but this is what Mark had to say about the Steelers tight end. Nobody performed better and more consistently for 4 weeks than Freiermuth. He had an instant connection with Russell Wilson and came across as a potential playmaker in Arthur Smith's tight end heavy offense. So when it comes to Pat Freiermuth, man, I think that he has the potential to be almost like the number 2 receiving threat for the Pittsburgh Steelers on offense this year, because you got George Pickens, and then, you got you got pretty much a hodgepodge of different receivers: Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin III, Quez Watkins, all these guys that the Steelers have in their wide receiver room. And if the Steelers decide not to get a big name receiver target before the start of training camp, I think that Freiermuth is probably their second best overall offensive receiving weapon right now, and he's looking freaking fantastic. And like Kaboly said, he's developing a really special connection with new quarterback Russell Wilson. Now let me know down there in the comments section, if everything stays the same at wide receiver, let's say they don't go get Michael Thomas or they don't trade for Brandon Ayuk, will Pat Freiermuth be Pittsburgh's number 2 receiving threat this year behind George Pickens? Let me know for today's pinned comment down there in the comments section. In just a second here, YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here. When that happens, make sure you go down there and answer today's pinned question. Kaboly's second winner that he lists is Russell Wilson. We've actually broken down his comments earlier in the week. So go ahead and check out our show from earlier in the week if you want to see what Kaboly had to say about Russell Wilson and how great of an OTA period that he had this year. Apparently, he's firmly ahead of Justin Fields, who has maybe struggled a little bit at Steelers OTAs. Russ had no such struggles. He's looking crisp, he's looking sharp, and he's looking like a legit starting quarterback in this league, which is definitely good news for Steelers fans across the world. And then, of course, our software screws up the Cam Sutton picture again, the Seattle version. Coop is shaking his head because this always happens. But Cam Sutton, the Steelers corner, not the Seattle tight end. Boss Brett, get on that right now, man. Let's get into what Kaboly had to say about Cam Sutton and how he's looked since rejoining the Steelers here this offseason. In the 2 weeks since Sutton returned to the Steelers, he has shown he's a major upgrade at slot cornerback. Now, that's not saying much given who previously manned the position, but Sutton makes the defense instantly better. And no matter how you feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers going out and getting Cam Sutton, given his legal situation in Florida this year, of course, that situation ended up getting him cut from the Detroit Lions. Now he's back with the Steelers. No matter how you feel about that whole situation, Cam Sutton makes this defense better. Before they signed him, they had pretty much nobody that they could fully trust to play that slot cornerback position. Now they have somebody that has assumed that role in the past and has played it extremely well. So Kaboly is 100% correct here, where Sutton, you can feel about however you want to feel about it, that the Steelers ended up getting him. But the fact that they did get him back definitely makes this defense instantly better. Okay, now let's get into the next winner here on Kaboly's list, which is Patrick Queen, the newly signed linebacker, formerly with the Baltimore Ravens, decided to come over where the grass is greener here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he has looked fantastic in OTAs and mandatory minicamp. I'll just let Kaboly speak for himself here. Queen is everything he was made out to be when the Steelers brought him in as the highest priced free agent in team history in March. His speed and quickness are noticeable, but his ability to be a 3-down linebacker who plays with intensity will make him a difference maker. And when you watch Patrick Queen out there, he just looks like a freak, all right? He's moving extremely quickly. He does things and he's doing them at a speed at his size that you just don't expect human beings to do it. Of course, he looks sick in that number 6 jersey as well with the visor out there. This guy looks like an all-pro to me, and I think he's going to be a complete difference maker in the Steelers linebacking room. Then we get to the final player to make Kaboly's winners list for this offseason, and that's second-year edge rusher Nick Herbig, who has also kind of quietly had a really good offseason program to this point. This is what Kaboly had to say about the second-year edge rusher out of Wisconsin. Herbig's speed is better than last year, but his addition of moves as a pass rusher stands out. Sure, he's undersized, but he also ran over Jaylen Warren during a drill, so how undersized can he be? And he is undersized for an edge rusher, okay? But this is somebody that brings a lot of intensity. I'm not sure if he can be a full, every down starter at the edge rusher position. Maybe he can prove me wrong in that regard. But this is certainly somebody that the Steelers have big expectations for. And I think he might be one of, if not the best, third edge rusher in a rotation in the National Football League today. He was phenomenal last year in his rookie season. Apparently, he's even better this year. And the opposing offenses are just not going to get a break with the Steelers pass rush because you got the best defensive player in the world in TJ Watt and then Alex Highsmith both coming after you in their normal lineup. And then when one of those guys needs a break, Herbig's going to be coming after you. So it's going to be really tough on opposing offenses to handle this Steelers pass rush, and I can't wait for them to wreak havoc here in 2024. Some honorable mentions here from Kaboly's winners list here. Isaac Seumalo, who had a very good portion here of OTAs. Then we get Dan Moore Jr., who seems to have retained his starting tackle spot, at least through the OTA period. And then we get to Calvin Austin III, who really impressed during the offseason program this year. Cordarrelle Patterson, who got signed this year as the new kick returner for the Steelers. Then Cam Johnston, the new punter, has really been impressing as well. Now coming up here, Mark Kaboly's losers, I should say. He's got 5 losers and then some dishonorable mentions here. Some pretty interesting names to cover here in just a second. But before we get into it, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics. And if you want a Justin Fields jersey today, you can go to chatsports.com/Fields. He's going to be wearing number 2 here in Pittsburgh. So if you think that he is the future at the quarterback position here with the Pittsburgh Steelers, you can get his jersey today when you use our link, chatsports.com/Fields. And if you guys go to that link and you make a purchase, Fanatics is going to send part of the proceeds our way to help give you guys more Steelers content every day for free here on YouTube. So if you're planning on getting a Justin Fields jersey anyway, and you want to help out the channel and kind of get 2 birds with 1 stone here, go ahead and go to chatsports.com/Fields and get that jersey in your closet today. First person on Kaboly's losers list here, Troy Fautanu, the first-round rookie tackle out of Washington. And this definitely isn't the best news in the world to see Fautanu's name on the losers list, but this is how Kaboly rationalizes it. This certainly doesn't mean Fautanu will be a bust or never be a star, but he makes the list because Moore is ahead of him on the depth chart, which is not his fault, but the reality of the situation. Sure, that can change quickly in Latrobe, but the limited amount of time Fautanu has to get acclimated to the NFL, coupled with how the organization approached Broderick Jones and Dan Moore Jr. battle last year, makes you wonder. Fautanu is smart and talented, but he must make strides to win a starting job. And because Dan Moore Jr. has looked pretty darn good, it certainly looks like that he could potentially be a Week 1 starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he at least gives the Steelers the option to not have to play Fautanu immediately in the National Football League. This is what Kaboly had to say about Dan Moore Jr. when he put him in the honorable mentions category we showed earlier. When you compare him with the first-round pick, Troy Fautanu, it's night and day. Now that's expected considering Moore has started 49 career games and Fautanu is a rookie. But if you are thinking Moore is just going to hand over the right tackle spot to the rookie, it's not going to happen. So right now, this is how I think that the offensive line depth chart looks like heading into Latrobe. Dan Moore Jr. is going to be the starting left tackle. Broderick Jones is going to be the starting right tackle. And then eventually it's going to shift over where Broderick's going to play left tackle for time, and then Fautanu is going to be playing right tackle, most likely at some point during this season. Will it happen by Week 1? I guess we'll have to see how things kind of shake down in Latrobe. But Dan Moore Jr. is doing a very good job in OTA practices to this point, and he is definitely holding his own. Now, let me know down there in the comments section, who starts Week 1? Is it going to be Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle type DM, or do you think Troy Fautanu is going to be the second starting tackle here? Move Broderick Jones over to the left side, and Fautanu slides in there at right tackle type TF if you think it's going to be Fautanu. Then we get to another loser here and another early draft pick here, the first 2 picks for the Steelers this year. Zach Frazier, the center, makes Kaboly's losers list here, where he had to say, it would have been nice to see Frazier work more with the first team than he did, but it didn't materialize as Nate Herbig took most of the reps. With linemen limited to drill work, for the most part, it's hard to get a grasp on what kind of player Frazier will be once he puts the pads on. And, I'm not sure if this really warrants putting Frazier in the loser category personally. I do think he's going to start week 1. And I think that the reason why the Steelers are kind of being careful about moving him up the depth chart too early is because the pads haven't come on. All right, you don't want to immediately ascend him up the depth chart and make him the number 1 center on the chart here, and then when you put the pads on, he's no good, right? You want him to earn it with the pads on in Latrobe, and I fully expect him to do that, okay? And the only reason why Frazier didn't get the reps with the ones during OTAs and mandatory minicamp is because Herbig is the veteran in the room. They haven't seen Frazier play with pads on yet, so they want to wait till they get that kind of confirmation in training camp this year, and I fully expect Frazier to be the starting center for this team week 1. Then we get to Justin Fields, who is the 3rd loser on Kaboly's list. We actually broke this down in multiple videos, the struggles that Justin Fields has been having during the offseason program in other videos that we put out on the channel. So to avoid getting this video to like 25 minutes, I'm just going to move on to the next loser here, which is going to be Darnell Washington, the tight end, second-year tight end out of Georgia. This is what Kaboly had to say about the behemoth tight end heading into his second year. Washington struggled last year in the spring, and it was noticeable. Nothing has changed 12 months later. Washington is what he is, and that's a solid blocking tight end. He won't be a 30-catch guy, and a second offseason illustrated that. So when it comes to DW, I have a little bit more of an optimistic outlook on Washington than Kaboly does. I think he can be a good red zone threat. He's going to be a big-time weapon as a blocker in those 12 personnel formations that Arthur Smith loves to run. But we do need to manage expectations. I feel like some people think because he's big and he's fast, he's going to be a star in this league at the tight end position. I don't think he's going to be a star. I think he's going to be a very good role player, and he's going to have his role to play in this offense, and that role is going to be very valuable. But if you're expecting him to have like 50 catches and like a lot of touchdowns, I just don't think that's a reasonable expectation for Darnell Washington. Then we get to the final loser here, which is Cam Hayward, and it's pretty much just because of the contract dispute, missing part of the voluntary portions of OTAs, all that stuff. So we've covered that on the show before, so I won't get too much into the details with Cam. Then when it comes to the dishonorable mentions here, he lists Chris Boswell just because he wasn't really kicking all that much during these practices. Van Jefferson failed to stand out among that kind of group of receivers, whereas guys like Quez Watkins, Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson showed a lot of really good things. Van Jefferson just kind of blended in. Mark Robinson, who was slated to potentially be a starter this year, has really fallen down the depth chart. James Daniels, not going to get an extension, so he makes the losers list. And then Cole Holcomb, the inside linebacker, because he's still dealing with that injury. If you want to see my list of OTA winners and losers, we actually put out a video up on the channel earlier. I think it was about a week ago. So I'll put my list of winners and losers and the link to that video in the comments and description of today's show. And before we say goodbye here, the Steelers have signed a wide receiver after releasing Denzel Mims earlier in the week, and it's Jacob Copeland. Where he's been on the Steelers twice before, and he's been cut twice before. Okay, so this is his third stint with the team. Honestly, I probably would have had Denzel Mims on this team. I don't know why they released him and brought in Copeland again. I just don't think that this is really something that's going to really work out, and I don't really expect him to make the team at the end of the day. That'll be it for today's segment, guys. Really do appreciate your support. Make sure you click that subscribe button for more Steelers news and rumors coverage throughout the 2024 offseason.